everybody. Happy Friday, or whatever day it is that you end up seeing this beautiful transmission. My name is Karen Renee Robb, and I am the founder of Frame Drum Wisdom and ReSounding Wholeness, and it's my sincere pleasure today to bring this next in the series of ReSounding Wholeness Wisdom of the Elders series with my special guest, Lyn Norris Hayes. Beautiful, beautiful woman here in the Nashville area. And I would like to start by reading the ReSounding Wholeness mission, why it is that I'm doing these conversations, both with elders and with other people in my life and in the community. And here it goes. In a world that idolizes celebrities, gurus, athletes, fashion, the latest trends, technology, media, and more, it is our goal to highlight human beings who are sharing their unique, incredible soul's purpose and service in the world. While they may not have the biggest following, these courageous human beings are making an incredible impact in the world, creating energetic ripples that will collectively serve to move mountains and reshape the future of humanity on this planet. We hope to encourage and inspire more people to reconnect with their unique gifts, step into their true soul's calling, take actions to serve humanity, and be a way shower at this pivotal time in history and her story. With regards to wisdom of the elders, back in December, I had one of these conversations with my mom, Phyllis Robb, who's in the Michigan area, in the state of Michigan. And I realized that we have been doing a huge disservice to our elders for a very, very long time in this country. And that so many of our elders have been put into institutions and their voices are not being heard anymore. So I also noticed that with COVID, more and more people, people of all ages were feeling what it's like to be isolated, feeling what it's like to be alone, and recognizing and feeling that sense of empathy for our elders. I decided that it was important for me to help change the future of that dynamic, to be a part of the change, to make sure that our elders are heard and respected and honored again. I think it's vital for the connection between our children and our elders to come back to this nation. And so I created ReSounding Wholeness, Wisdom of the Elders, returning to listening to, respecting the life experience of and wisdom of a vital, vital resource in our nation, our elders. And Lyn is my third interviewee. So welcome, Lyn, to this time together. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this series and for sharing your life and your wisdom with us today.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you for inviting me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah. So what I would love to do is if you wouldn't mind giving us some insight into the beginning of your life, where you grew up, your family, whatever it is you feel moved to share with us about who you were when you came into this world.
Well, you prompted me a little bit with that particular question. And so I decided to tell it this way in sort of a trilogy, dividing my life into thirds. The first part of my life, till I was 18, I grew up in New Jersey. And so when you say New Jersey, everybody thinks, oh, she's from the North, she's this and that and the other. But actually, I'm very, very Southern. My parents and everyone that I lived with in that town were part of the Great Migration. This is when African Americans moved from the South to the North. Mm-hmm. And so I've always known about sweet tea. I've always known about cornbread. I've always known about collard greens And there's always been a pot of rice on my stove as a child.
Mhm.
But the beginning of my life um, was challenged in that I was given away at birth.
Oh.
And I characterize it this way: my mother,
Mm.
who must have been devastated, horrified, whatever, to find herself pregnant in 1950,
Mm.
decided that she could not keep me.
Mhm.
So she gets on a train. I was born in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So she gets on a train and travels from Washington to Philadelphia and hands me to someone she has never actually met. They've only corresponded through letters.
Mhm.
And the person that she gave me to had never been able to have a child. Now, I don't know what you call this. I don't know how to characterize it. I don't know what to say. But the moment she handed me to this woman, the woman got pregnant. And so she couldn't keep me.
What?
She couldn't,
Twice.
couldn't keep me. So, but this is a good thing.
Okay.
He gave me to her mother, which would have been my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
So, my mother and father, I didn't know I was going to get emotional.
Okay, please.
My mother and father at that time were, my mother was probably almost 50 and my father was probably 60 something. My dad was born in 1894, 1894, the son of an enslaved person.
Mm.
And my mother was born in 1902. And so they were happy. Everybody, I was happy. They were happy. I was just a happy little girl.
Mm.
I tell everyone I was spoiled emotionally, not materially,
Mhm.
but emotionally. I thought the world was going to love me
Mhm.
because I was so loved in my home.
Mhm.
Now, I have to qualify that a little bit because after a while, you understand my father was getting older,
Mhm.
and I was not a still child. I hopped and I jumped and I had plenty to say. And I think, with his age, that kind of created a little friction. So got a little irritable as time went on. But in the beginning, he and I were just inseparable. And my mother always felt left out because she wanted to be the one. But it was my daddy and my daddy and my daddy. And but around 12 years old, he thought, I don't know about this little girl. So he sort of broke away from me, which I finally understood, but it was devastating when it happened. And so then I gravitated towards my mother. Uh, I had a hard time in school. When I went out into the world, I found out that everybody wasn't going to love me.
Mhm.
There were things about me that just didn't excite people. I thought I was just fabulous. I'm going to school and thinking, oh, but it didn't work out that way. And also worked out to find out that I was very tenderhearted. They used to say tenderhearted. If you said the wrong thing to me, if you looked at me the wrong way, if I thought I hadn't pleased you in some way, then that would grieve me and I would cry. So when you find out who the crybaby is, boy, you're the target for everything.
Mhm.
And as school progressed, I found out that I didn't have the last name that I thought I had. Every time school started, the roll would be called, and I had a difficult first name, which is Lyn Ann, not difficult in the South, but in the North. Can't say those double names.
Yes.
And then I would come to this strange last name, and I didn't know who that was. So they're having trouble with my first name. They get to the last name. I don't know they're calling on me. So as a result, the laughter would ensue, and no, you don't have a name, and all that would happen, and I would cry.
Mm.
So around 7 years old, my parents decided to adopt me. And that also had some twists and turns to it, because really, the woman that I was first handed to thought that she had dibs on me.
Oh.
Which was really my mother's daughter.
Yes.
So they didn't involve her in the adoption. They didn't even tell her that it was happening. They just took me, and I was adopted. So that settled the name. I got my last name straight, which my maiden name is May, M-A-Y. And I was happy. I remember all the details of that day. That was a very, very happy time. But I wasn't happy in that community. The community was highly segregated. Sundown laws, you had to be in between those signs before dark. If you weren't in between those signs before dark, then you had hell to pay. There was no opportunity for employment for Black people other than to be a maid or housekeeper or something of that nature. You had to get an education in order to do something else. And even if you were able to do something else, it would not be there. It would not be in that town.
Wow.
Now, let me tell you about my town. Let me tell you the famous person that comes from my town. I have to tell you. Okay. Oprah's boyfriend, Stedman Graham, was my classmate.
What?
Yes.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yes, yeah, it is. And it's amazing for us.
Yes.
And he is entirely wonderful and entirely nice. And Oprah has probably, second to me and second to somebody else that might be listening today, that I know is listening today, the best man on the earth. Okay.
Oh,
good man.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And his family is good, is wonderful. But we both left. We all left. Now, what does that do to a town? That collapses a town into itself when the fruit and the best harvest leaves, because we don't come back.
Yeah.
But Stedman has done something fabulous for our town. He created an event that we all go back to on Labor Day.
Okay.
Celebrate the founding of our town, which is unique in itself. We were founded by a congressman who was run out of Congress after Reconstruction, a Black congressman. And he bought this land in New Jersey. And that is how the people were able to migrate there.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I turned 18, graduating from high school, I knew nothing. I was sitting in the cafeteria and I heard my name called over the cafeteria intercom by the guidance counselor, Miss Gladys Delaney. I will never forget her. She called me in. She said, "Lyn Ann, why haven't you applied to any colleges?" Well, I didn't know, my parents didn't know about applying to colleges. I didn't know about, and I didn't have brothers and sisters. I had no cousins. I had nothing. Plus, I didn't think my grades were good enough, because in my mind, I was this big always, abandoned. Nobody really wanted me. And so what good was I? Oh. That woman turned around that day, that minute, that instant, and arranged for me to go to college in Boston, Massachusetts. And that is where I went.
Wow.
The whole time I was preparing to go, my father was pacing back and forth. Now, this is the one that was acting like you need to go fast. You're not leaving me. You're not leaving me. And my mother and I, we were just busy preparing. And I felt so sorry for both of them. I didn't want to leave my mother, but I knew I had to leave my daddy, but I didn't want him to grieve.
Right.
And really, I think it hurt him when the bus came and I actually got on it and we left. But anyway, that is my story to 18. Yes. Not much to tell, but it shaped and formed my life. Now, church was a huge part of my life at that time. And I was baptized at 9 years old, and I had only one philosophy: love Love, even at 9 years old, love is the key to everything.
Mm.
At 18, love is the key to everything. Just loving one another.
Yes.
But of course, I found out that that was not really the key.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was my key, and I thought that was the key, but it was not the magic key that opened everything.
Yeah.
So after I went away to school, oh, it was lovely, and I began to find myself. I found out I was a hippie, really deep down inside. I started wearing bells and blue jeans. I cut my hair, and it went instantly into this style. And one of the saddest moments for that period was I didn't get to go to Woodstock. I was
Oh
out.
no.
I was out on the side of the road in Boston. I'm not sure what I was doing. Maybe just waiting for the bus.
Yes.
I remember this guy came along in a little red Fiat and said, "You want to go to Woodstock?" And for about 2 seconds, I thought, "Oh, all I have to do is get in that car." And I thought, "No, my mom and daddy wouldn't like that. And I don't know you, sir."
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But in the 60s, 68, 69, you would do something like that.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
Yeah.
I just let him go on. But I still kind of
There was a moment where you were
feel
like,
sad that I didn't. But anyway, I finished school. Didn't occur to me to try to transfer to another school. It was just a 2-year school, but I could have easily gone 2 blocks down the street to Boston University, or maybe over a little bit and gone to Boston College, or even over to another town and gone somewhere else. But I didn't know that I could do that. What I knew was that I had to go to work.
yes.
I knew I had to go to work.
Mhm.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, I was also an activist in college.
Oh, you were.
Oh, yes. I
awesome.
I organized, because this was during the SDS days and all those days, the Panthers and all those days.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And the school was Jewish. It was a Jewish school. And they wanted, when they began to bring African Americans in, they wanted to broaden their horizons, I guess, or broaden their base.
Right.
But the school was basically a Jewish junior college, and so Black people had kind of a different view about how things ought to be run. We wanted different music. We wanted different things because it was a broadcasting school. That's what the school started out for, radio broadcasting, and then
Okay.
soon after that, television. So, but I was in business administration. So anyway, we organized and we took over the administration building with me at the helm.
Go Lyn. Go Lyn May.
So that is my call. That is who I am.
That was the beginning.
I will take over, okay?
Which is like what I want to say is like the antithesis of your childhood. It just sounds like you just, in school you held back, and all of a sudden it's like you're out on your own and you're blossoming. You're stepping
Right.
into who
Well,
you
I
are.
was free.
Yes.
So another word came into my vocabulary:
Mhm.
love and free.
Mm.
I was free to be Lyn,
Yes.
but I still didn't know that. I
Mhm.
still didn't know that for real.
Mhm.
Right? Other things began to happen. When you're about 18, 19, 20 years old, you begin to explore your sexuality. I know people don't like to talk about that, but I'm sure if I put 100 people in the room and told them we won't tell anybody, let's talk about this.
All sorts of stories.
Yes, we would all have our stories. And so at that particular time, such things dealing men and, well, they were boys, men, and sexuality, and all those things began to come into my life, and I was terrified of my own feelings, because I'm from the era where you don't do certain things, or whatever. But I'm thinking, it's not that bad. It's actually kind of good. So why should I do
Why
it?
does it have such a bad rap?
thinking about my mother, and I actually prayed this prayer. God, please help me. I don't know how to control this. Take me home to my mother or give me a husband. I prayed that prayer in January of like 71. May of 71, here comes this little man proclaiming his love for me. And in 2 weeks, we got married.
What? You're like, that's my solution. Thank you, God.
Right. I prayed the prayer.
Yeah, you did.
You take me home.
You manifested.
Yeah. So I married him. But what I was not prepared for and what I didn't know is that I hadn't fully discovered the who of who I was. So I was not prepared to marry anyone, and neither was he. So we stayed married for a long time, 30 some years.
Wow.
And we had together 5 children from varying places, adoption, birth, we had them.
Yes.
And but after 30 some years, I realized I was not loved. And since I require a great amount of love, and I want to give deep love, I didn't want love cut off from me. And there was something about me that was causing this man distress after 30 some years. And so I thought I would help him out. And I just got my pocketbook and my car keys and got in my little truck and found somewhere else to go.
Yeah.
And that was devastating. That was devastating for our children. It was just devastating. So my advice to anyone is to search yourself very carefully before you engage in sexual relations and marriage. Both of them are wonderful and ordained by God, but we as humans must make some decisions about how we're going to navigate those areas.
Right.
So it's during that time, Karen, that I worked for Bell South. Okay. It's during that time that we moved to Tennessee. First, we moved to Knoxville. I'm in the second part of my life now.
Yes.
We moved to Knoxville. We stayed there for maybe about 20 years. And then our jobs dissolved and we were offered employment in Nashville. And that is how I came to Nashville.
And what year was that you arrived?
1991.
91. Okay.
1991. 1991, we came to Nashville, Tennessee. And that has been difficult for me because Nashville is a different culture, Tennessee is just different. Now, you remember how I talked about what it was like to live in the segregated North?
Yes.
You knew the boundaries. You knew where you could and could not go. You knew what you could and could not do. It was what we call overt racism.
Yeah. In your face. In
your face. It's there. We're never going to give you a bus. So you just make up your mind. You're going to walk to work. We're never going to give anybody a business license to have a taxi. So don't even try to pretend you're going to do that. This is never going to happen.
Right.
But we had ways of circumventing that. My daddy became the transportation for the community in the guise of just carrying people to his job. But he actually was carrying people to their jobs, okay? Because we didn't have transportation. So we worked around it.
Yep.
But here in this state, in the state of Tennessee, it is covert. Covert. I came to Tennessee at the height of affirmative action. I was straight out of a major corporation in Boston. I took court reporting in school, and I used something called stenographic machine. I didn't use a shorthand.
Right.
You know, the little machine
Yeah.
yeah, I used that.
I do.
So when I applied at Bell South, you know, I had to take shorthand for the particular job I was applying for. It was the first Black female to work in human resources as a secretary.
Okay.
So here I come in with my little machine and I'm ready to, well, I couldn't take the test that day. They had to check that machine out. They never had seen, no, not that day. But before I even got there, hair looking like this, a woman that I was interviewing with in the employment office, in the state employment office, said, I can get you a job somewhere, but you're going to have to change your hair. And I looked at her. I said, change my hair. She said, come here. I'm going to show you how you need to get your hair changed, how it's supposed to look. And she carries me out, and there happened to be a Black woman sitting out there with her hair straightened. And she said, now, if you can get your hair to look like that, I can get you a job. And I said, my hair doesn't grow out of my head like that, and I can't do that. But anyway, I did get the job at Bell South. And eventually I became manager at Bell South.
Wow.
But it was all under affirmative action. And in my opinion, affirmative action is a guise for allowing some things to happen. And what did happen was they made white females a protected group.
Okay.
Under affirmative action.
Oh, okay.
And when that happened, everybody had to step back for white females.
Oh.
Now, that's not bad, but if the majority of the people in the corporation are white females, who else is going to get a job?
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I got pitted. Slowly, I'm beginning to see something else in society that I hadn't seen before. I got pitted one time against a friend of mine. I'm going to tell you two incidents. I know I said I didn't want to talk about Bell South, but I'm going to tell you.
It's important. Go for it.
Two things that happened to me. I wanted to be an engineer. Girl, if you knew how much I like looking at engines and wires and the inside of stuff, and oh my goodness, it's just thrilling. It's just the best thing to open up the hood of a car and look at that engine and see. Well, I don't know what they do, but I wanted to know what they do. Yes, yes. Okay. It's the best thing to go down to the fuse box and open it up and see the breakers and everything. And oh my gosh, I just wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that was the pride I had in working at Bell South, all things communication. I just couldn't believe, I was so thrilled to be part of that organization. And I was hoping to be an engineer. Now keep in mind, or let me explain this to you, that being an engineer at Bell South is a on-the-job training, engineering, telecommunications. You don't have to be a college-trained engineer.
Gotcha.
Okay, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
But I just inhaled the central office. You can walk in the central office, and every time when people dial their telephones, you could hear every click. The central office is alive with conversation through the clicks of people dialing. I mean, I was in heaven. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah.
I wanted to know. It didn't matter. I just wanted to be a technical person. So here we go. The head of the engineering department comes to me and says, Lyn, we want to consider you for the position of engineer. Oh, I was so excited. I was so happy. I was so wonderfully excited. I thought, man, I know I can pass the test. I just know I can do this. What I didn't know, they really were considering someone else. It didn't matter if I passed the test, didn't pass the test, excelled highly on it didn't matter. I wasn't going to get the job. What they were going to be able to say is they considered a Black person for the job. That was the phrase. We considered you for the job. That didn't mean you're going to get it. we at least glanced your way.
Right.
But it pitted me and a friend against one another,
Mm.
uh, and created a nonverbal rift in our relationship. I never spoke to her again after that because she got the job.
Right.
And she knew what happened. I knew. In a way, she was used also.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she was as hurt as I was, even though she wanted the job, of course. So she moved. The job was in Nashville, so she was able to move to Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing that happened to me during that same period of time is I was the only Black person in a management role in this particular building. And so I spoke to everybody and I did everything with everybody, but I kind of hung around with the other managers who all happened to be white.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of them was going to retire. I didn't particularly, I knew her and I went on break with her and all that stuff, but I didn't really know her like that.
Yeah.
That I would even think, well, I got to go to her retirement party. But anyway, they decided that they would have to tell me that I wouldn't be able to go to her retirement party because it was at a country club that did not allow Black people to. And
Oh
so
my
one of those
gosh.
women had to take me into a room and explain to me why I could not go to this
Retirement party.
Yeah. So
And what year was that?
that was maybe around 78, 79,
Okay.
somewhere in there. Because that was in Knoxville.
Right. Tennessee. Good old Tennessee.
So those are the funny things that happened to me. They're not funny, but they're sad things that happened to me at Bell South. Yes. And so at the end, you wanted to know about my retirement, how I came about to retire. Mm-hmm. At the end, I was a telephone operator. I came here thinking that I might be able to get a higher level job, and it kept going the other way. Yes. But I don't go the other way. No. Whatever you offer me to do or whatever you assign me to do, I am going to give my best 100%. Yes. And that's what I always do. But it caused friction in my office because and I'm also going to be happy.
Well, I'm excelling doing an incredible job.
I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to find some joy out of what I'm doing. And I did. I found joy out of giving out the telephone numbers. And it was like a game to me. Yeah. I'm just not going to complain about the customers. It was delightful. It was wonderful. They didn't like me to laugh. They didn't want me to meet my objectives. They didn't want this. They didn't want that. And so finally, I developed panic, anxiety, bad anxiety. And one day I went to work, and I looked around. And I had 26 years service. I went to work at 8:45, and I thought, I don't have to do this anymore. And I went back home. I was home in my bed by 9 o'clock. That's how close I lived to my job. I figured out I could make as much money staying home as I did going to work with my pension and all the other things. And so that is how the middle third of my life ended. First third of my life sort of ended in going away to college and getting married. And the middle third ends with retiring from Bell South. So that leaves, good 25 years of operating. Yes. And so what happened was I turned to art and I immersed myself into church. Now, I had been going to church all along, and I knew that I had the call on my life to preach and to do some other things, but I didn't have it really defined. Mm-hmm. But I joined the Methodist church, and it was the first time I had seen a woman serving in the pulpit.
Oh, yeah.
not only did she serve in the pulpit, she served communion. I had never seen that before.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Not only did she serve communion, she preached.
Yes.
And she and I are still, this has been over 25 years ago, and she and I are still close, good friends to this day. In fact, she said, I got my COVID shot. She's why I was
friends in high places.
Yeah,
right?
honey. Anyway, so I went to church. I did the art. I worked with two arts organizations. One was Nashville African American Arts Association. They put me out of there. When they put me out of there, I founded my own organization, Creative Artists of Tennessee. But the highlight of working with the arts was renting the Ryman Auditorium.
Oh, yes. Tell them about this wonderful event in your life.
I didn't know. What did I know? It was down there, and I was doing something huge that needed a huge, big place. I couldn't see a church. Usually I do things in church because I have this thing about theology and art working together. But this particular, my organization had won a nationwide grant from a documentary corporation called BlackSide. And these are the folks that did the documentary Eyes on the Prize. Okay, which is a seminal piece of our African American history. It's where Henry Hampton who was the producer, went in and told the civil rights story for the first time, collective, on film. And so he decided for his second documentary that he would tell the story of art, 100 years of art in the African American community, and it was called I'll Make Me a World. And I'll Make Me a World had a particular theological, theological ramifications for us because it's part of a series of sermons told in African American dialect when you put it next to the Bible, of how a Black preacher would begin to talk about Genesis 1 and some other parts of the Bible, and this was done by James Weldon Johnson. So I had this concept of what it would be like, and I said, we got to have somewhere grand to have this. All by myself in my little brain. I thought, well, let me check out the Ryman. So I went to, and now you have to keep in mind that at that time I was on every art organization involved with Metro Arts Council, Tennessee Arts Commission. So I knew all the executive directors of every major art entity in the city. Okay. So when I walked in the room, they knew who I was. So I walked in the room, and the guy says, Lyn, what are you doing here? I said, I came to see if if it's possible to rent the Ryman. I don't know if it's how expensive it is, but that's what I want to do. And I told him the project and all that, and he got his rate book out and showed it to me. And I thought, this is not that much. Yeah. And so we rented the Ryman. The night of the event, Phil Ponder, somebody on here may know Phil Ponder. He was the vice mayor at that time. He was an artist. He does the Nashville cityscapes, walks up to the stage of the Ryman, and he calls my name. I think, what in the world is he calling my name for? Not the organization's name, but my name. So I go up, and he says to me, he has this beautiful little blue box in his hand, and he says to me, we want to recognize the fact that you were the first African American to rent the Ryman Auditorium. Oh my God. And on behalf of the mayor of Nashville, Tennessee, we want to present you with this commemorative coin. Well, you could have just blown me over.
Well, what year was that, Lyn?
That was 1999.
1999. Amazing.
Amazing. It was a wonderful event, a wonderful night. I also had connected, the Ryman is right next door to Bell South's Batman building.
Mm-hmm.
And and at that time they had a catering conglomerate that they worked with, Bell South did, in the building.
Yeah.
So I was able to have them cater our reception. Art was all around. And then we walked over and also have the cars parked in the Bell South parking area free. Yes. Because parking is limited. And then we would walk across to the Ryman for the event. That was stellar. That was stellar.
What an amazing experience. It's like, I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do.
See that?
You're not even thinking about any of that.
I don't think about it. No.
Yeah.
I don't go, this is going to be good on my resume. I don't even think about it.
Right.
When you asked for a resume, I had to think. Mm. I had to say, what is it? Yeah. But anyway.
What have I been doing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I'm still going to church. I don't, the people at this particular church are in the quandary, as most people are, about me. Where did she come from? How did she get here? How is she able to do this? Because one of the things I did at church was host the Soweto gospel course from South Africa.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Right in the church house.
Wow.
That was funny too, because of art connections. Somebody called me, one of the executive directors of another group called me and said, we want to do something with the Soweto gospel course. They're going to be here, but we want to do something with them in the afternoon somewhere else. I said, okay, fine. You can bring them to my church. Now, my pastor was wonderful and understood me. Mm-hmm. And so if I made a commitment like that, I knew it was going to be okay. He was going to help me see it through.
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he did. And it was a free event. And it packed the church. And it was fabulous.
I bet it was.
Soweto gospel. Yes. I forgot I even did that till I started talking right there. Man, I'm still going to church. Going to church. So finally, the church asked me to go to the Youth and Young Adult Conference in Greensboro, North Carolina. I went. And then they said, well, if you go, you're going to have to, we would like for you to supervise the liturgical dance group. Now, normally they wouldn't let me anywhere near the liturgical dance. I know nothing about dance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I know about art, but I don't know about dance. And I know about kids.
Yes.
I don't know about dance.
Yes.
Anyway, we went, I rehearsed those girls. They paid attention to me. And we ended up winning first place out of all the CME churches.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
But while I was there, we were having communion. Mm-hmm. And the communion went south. It went south because the people started worrying about t-shirts instead of worrying about communion. And the bishops were far away from me. They looked like they were an inch high. And I kept thinking, why don't the bishops do something about this?
Yes. Because
I love communion. I mean, that's just it. And I wanted them to straighten these folks out. And so I started saying out loud, well, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And the next thing I heard was, you can teach and preach to my people. Then the next thing I said, well, the bishops must have their microphones on. Why would they be saying that out loud to this whole group of people? And then I realized, now this was audible from outside of my head. And I realized, oh no, I didn't stop at that time. And I ran from the room, horrified that I had heard such a thing.
Oh my goodness.
It was startling to hear such a thing because it becomes a responsibility.
Yes.
It becomes a moment where you have to decide whether you're going to obey or not obey.
Mm.
And as far as I could tell all my life, I had been on the first step of that moment,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I could tell.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't know is how hard it was going
Mm-hmm.
to be in that moment
Mm.
and to live through that and to live, to accept the burden of that
Mm.
as a woman.
Yes.
So I did all the things I was supposed to do. I got licensed. I went through all the ordinations for the various orders, and my same pastor said, now you know you have to go to seminary. At this time, Karen, I was 50 some years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a master's of divinity. I excelled at that. And I eventually left that church and went to another church.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the same type of support, the same kind of pastor who I think is in fact listening to this broadcast today,
Mm-hmm.
and who continues to support me, and his lovely wife.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's more there than support. It's a genuine feeling of love and respect.
Yes.
And so I served with him at this particular church for maybe 4 years as an associate. And then I went during that 4 years back to get my doctorate. And he supported me, and the church supported me in the endeavor of getting the doctorate.
Yeah.
But as things happened, he was moved from the church. Both those churches have itinerant or traveling pastors.
Yeah.
So I even pastored a church in by myself in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I met the pastor that I'm talking about now, in Paris, Tennessee. I pastored a church for about 3 years in Paris, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're getting over in the last third of my life.
Yeah.
I had this divorce. I told you that happened in 2005.
Yes.
And I don't know, whatever I was in 2005, it was the same thing I faced in whenever I told you I had to do the prayer, send me home to my mama,
or get me married.
Yeah, but I didn't have no mama, and I didn't want to get married, so I didn't pray that prayer. But I was in a quandary.
Mm-hmm.
And one night, I woke up and sat straight up in my bed, and this voice inside this time,
Mm-hmm.
you got to find Doc.
What?
So I guess one of the things I'm trying to say right now is listen to your inner voice.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to what's going on within you.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get silent enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to find Doc. And I said, well, you know what? I don't know a Doc, and I won't be finding a Doc. The voice said, yes, you do. Think about it for 2 or 3 days. Mm-hmm. It'll come to you.
Mm-hmm.
Karen, in 3 days, it came to me that I did know a Doc, and all I had to do to find him was to call Musa.
Baba
Musa.
Baba Musa. Mm-hmm.
So, and at that time, that whole community was my salvation.
Oh my God.
You know, finding that African community
Mm-hmm.
gave me stability. Mm-hmm. They didn't care who my mama was, mm-hmm. who my daddy was, mm-hmm. what I had been, what I was going to do. The only thing we cared about is that we were African together, and we would work for the highest and the best for the collective.
Yes.
You know, as opposed to some other places that I was in. Church cared who your mama was, who your daddy was, what your line and lineage was, where did you come from, what you doing here, how come you trying to, church cares about those things. But in this particular community, that was not the issue.
Yeah.
And I could be Lyn.
Yeah.
I could be Lyn. So I ran over to Baba Musa because that's the relationship we had. I didn't call him. I drove over there. I said, Baba, do you think Doc would like to take me out on an art date, and his eyes lit up. He said, "Oh yes, Lyn." They all call me Miss Lyn. Yes, Miss
Right.
Lyn.
Yes.
I think that'll work out fine. I said, "Well, will you ask him?" He said, "Oh yeah." Well, it took a long time. He never did call me, whatever. So I went back over there. I said, "Bob Musa, don't worry about telling Doc." He said, "It's too late. I already told him." But what I didn't know is Ron's brother had passed away.
Oh, right.
So the next time we saw each other was at a communal event with all our African community folk, and everyone was happy, and it was for someone's graduation, but they were more interested in what Doc and I were going to do.
Oh, really? They were seeing the love coming. Yeah. What's happening between you 2? Mm-hmm.
And it was something that I cannot describe.
Mm-hmm.
Instantly, it was like, this is my person.
Yes.
Where have you been?
Yes.
And so we've been married for 13 years.
Mm.
And we are we're 2 hippies together.
Yes.
we just, when we got married, Ron told me to enjoy the ride, and I'm finally learning how to enjoy the ride.
Mm-hmm.
But recently, I left the church.
Yes.
I left the church because I could not figure out where my freedom was.
Mm.
In a place that said I should be liberated.
Mm.
I was still yet in bondage.
Mm-hmm.
I described the bondage I had in my town and in Bell South because of the hue of my skin.
Yes.
And I was not expecting my gender to be a bondage in the house of God.
Mm. Mm.
And so I left.
Mm-hmm.
I left. And I probably will never, ever go back to organized institutional religion.
Yes.
But I will always be with my God, and I will always have my teacher in the form of Jesus, the messenger.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yes.
Now, what will I do? At first I thought, well, I won't preach anymore. But then I discovered, because of you.
Mm.
Because when I left the church, I didn't think anybody would ever call me to do anything.
That was just December, right?
Right.
It was December of 2020.
And suddenly I get a call out of nowhere. Will you do this?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, what will I do? What? And then the calls started coming from everyone. Will you do this? Will you do this?
Yes.
I've worked harder this week than I've worked in some weeks.
Yes.
But guess what?
What?
I was free.
Yes. Oh, right.
Free to talk about what I wanted to talk about. Free to let the Spirit of God move me. Now, there were parameters, just like you have parameters, but there's a certain freedom in there.
Yes.
I can be Lyn.
Yes.
So the third part of my life, starting with 2007, it's the year that Ron and I got married, is the endeavor to know who Lyn is. Mm-hmm. But I say even further than that, starting with December, whatever date that was in December.
Yes.
That I was so unceremoniously let go from my church.
Mm-hmm.
I began to think, who am I?
Yes.
You must know yourself. You've got to know yourself. You've got to examine yourself. You've got to go within yourself and do some excavating. Mm-hmm. You've got to be a archaeologist. You've got to dig around in your bones to find out who you are. Most of us are based on who we are attached to. Just like you said in the beginning, we like celebrities, we like these, we like those people. Oh, you know what?
What's outside of us,
Right.
taking it
Who
from outside of us.
who are you inside?
Mm-hmm.
What do you really like?
Mm-hmm.
What do you really want to contribute? What do you really want to do?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you want to do it? I just couldn't see, I'm 70, Karen, so I just couldn't see giving up and saying, oh, I'm 70. I was going there.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
too old. I can't. No, I'm not too old. There's
No,
work yet to be done.
absolutely.
And there's someone out there that wants and needs to hear what I have to say.
Absolutely.
I don't care if it's one person,
Yes.
but I cannot be silenced.
Amen, sister.
And I will not be silenced.
Amen, sister. I wanna say I'm thinking of love, free, liberation. I don't know what you've named this next phase, but you're liberated to be who you really are and bring the true love that Jesus, the master, was trying to teach, right? To
Right.
share.
Right.
So
Right.
in your excavating, I want to take a quick journey to finding my family. So
Oh,
so I don't know when that excavation took place, but tell us about finding your family.
it was in the same year that I was called to preach, 2004.
Okay.
Uh, Now, I had found my mother in 1985,
This is your biological
my
mom.
biological mother in 1985.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke to her on the telephone. I wrote to her. She insisted that she was not who I thought she was. And she said to me in 1985, do not call me or contact me again until I contact you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now I had been trained to do what my elders instructed me to do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to get off the path. We don't have time to talk about that right now, but sometimes you have to go, in order to find yourself, you have to go off the path.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make mistakes. You cannot live this perfect life.
Mm-hmm.
So for 22 years, I stayed on the path of not knowing where she was.
Mm-hmm.
In the year 2000, I went to Israel as a result of art.
Mm-hmm.
With a group of Jewish people. So I saw Israel from a Jewish perspective. Everybody gets excited. Oh, you went to Israel, and did you go? No, I didn't go from the Christian perspective, because in reality, I am very Jewish.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I really am,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was fine with that. But it was the hardest. It was difficult trip.
Mm-hmm.
Because of who I was and how I looked at that time. Mm-hmm. Everywhere I went, everywhere we went, it was like, who is this woman that who? Yeah, we know you guys, y'all are all right, but who is this woman? We went to the Holocaust Museum, and the man, they all went in, but the man that was the interpreter,
yeah,
he left his position and he came to me like I was some big somebody and
yes,
welcomed me in. I'm like, what is going on here? Well, that created something between me and all those people. I don't know.
You're a queen.
They didn't like it.
It was like you were being treated special, right?
It was me and a guy, a Jewish guy, and they didn't like him either. So, anyway. But when I came back, something had happened to me spiritually taking that trip.
Yes.
And staying with a Jewish family and going to kibbutz and speaking to an elder Israeli woman who could not speak English, but we're talking together, and she finds out I'm sick. She goes and makes me some chicken soup.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My host had olive trees. Oh, they were beautiful. And he made olive oil, and he gave me a bottle of the olive oil, which my other churches still use it now to bless people from 2000 to
Wow.
2000.
Wow.
It was just rich. It was just a rich. We went to an orphanage, and the little girl just fell in love with me and made me these little beads, and I wanted to take her with me. I didn't want her to be in the orphanage,
Right.
which I still have the beads.
Mhm.
I met the Ethiopian Jews, and I went in the back to see where they were cooking the food. And I didn't know this. Those Ethiopian women looked like me. So when they saw me and I saw them, we cried. I couldn't speak. We couldn't, but we embraced and we loved each other. And they literally hand fed me their food. Now, if you know me, I don't eat. I got to identify everything I'm eating, but I didn't care.
Right.
That was a moment.
Yes.
That was a moment that changed my life. So when I got back, I said, I've been good for 22 years. I got to call this woman again.
I need to know. I need to know who I am.
Right. And so when I called her this time, she agreed. And I went, I met her. We had the same hands. We had the same beautiful legs.
Mm.
And even more than that, we were the same color.
Mm.
Now, I don't know how to express this to you, but there's subtle differences in our skin. We're not all the same color.
Right.
Some people have red backgrounds. Some people have yellow backgrounds underneath this brown skin.
Yes.
Well, my mother and I and my son have this warm chestnut copper color to our coloring.
Yes.
And I used to hold my hand up next to other people to see, are we no, we're not.
Yeah.
But when I saw my mother and we had the same color, I knew I had found something. And she tried not to like me, but after a while she started, I don't know what happened to her. I don't know what happened to her. Even the other, and I had brothers and sisters.
Right.
I had two sisters and two brothers.
Yes. Wow.
Mm. And I was the oldest. So they love me. Now we have a whole big relationship. They just,
yes.
They say, yes, ma'am, to me. Oh my goodness. And I love them. I love them because I can see parts of me in each of them.
Yes. Oh.
When you have an opportunity to do that, it's revolutionary. It changes your life.
Yes.
And so I had my mom for 2 years, and I was back and forth for people's weddings and what have you. And somewhere in there, I decided to drive to see her. That was in 2005. I don't know that I had her for 2 years. 2005, I drove from Nashville to Baltimore to see my mother. I couldn't even drive around the corner at that time, okay?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But I wanted to see my mother. It was around Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And I took my youngest son with me because he had never met her. And we had a lovely time together. And by Christmas, she was gone.
Oh, wow. Another divine timing for you, huh?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. By Christmas, she was gone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Karen, do we have any time left?
Yes, I wanted you to share some poetry with us.
Okay.
Because I know that's something you enjoy doing, and you've had something prepared. And then we'll have a few more questions before we're done. It's just been so lovely to hear about your life.
Okay,
So far.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to share. I have been reading Cast. I don't know if it's showing properly.
It is. Just lift it up just a little bit more. Perfect. Yep, we see
by
it.
Isabel Wilkerson. If you all have the opportunity, read this book. If you can't read the whole book, there are cliff notes out there for you. If you remember the old cliff notes, they're not called that anymore, but they call them summaries.
Okay.
And you will get the essence of the book.
Okay.
It is a difficult book to read, but I addressed this understanding of caste in my dissertation, because I really, at the time of my writing my dissertation, this book was not out then. This book just came out in the summer. But I addressed it because one of the womanist theologians said that caste was beyond racism.
Okay.
As I see now, that is the system that we have in this country. This country, according to Isabel Wilkerson and according to history, perpetuates a caste system, in that in order for certain things to happen and certain things to be, people have to be in a certain place, like in a play, like the cast in a play, or like the cast that you put on your arm to hold your arm so that it will heal and heal correctly. Is how she characterizes this. And so caste tells me everything I need to know about who I am as a Black person in America, because of caste in India, based on one's color. You are the lowest caste. Caste, Hitler wanted to do the very same thing to Jewish people that Americans had done to African people. So Hitler consulted with America to determine how to do it and still be the city, shining city on a hill. Hitler says, this is amazing. You have a whole group of people that you hold as second class, third class, fourth class people, keep them subjugated, separate them, but yet everybody clamors to get to America. We want to know how to do that. And so what they found out, that there were laws. There were laws created in 1619 in the Commonwealth of Virginia, keeping certain things in place so that certain people would be kept in place. And one of the laws was whoever your mother was, that's what you would be.
Okay.
Now, the big law of the universe is whoever your father is, that's who you will be. But Virginia, right, whoever your father is, you take the identity of your father. But in this situation, because fathers weren't necessarily of the same racial type as the mothers. If the mother had a child, then the child would be born into bondage, regardless of the ethnicity of the father. That child would become property. And on and on and on and on. So Hitler developed his system, and those were called the Virginia State Race Laws. And he developed his system and called it the Nuremberg Laws. I had never heard of that until I read Cast. I knew that Hitler consulted with us regarding eugenics. But I did not know that there were actually laws fashioned after the Virginia laws. And Hitler even said, we're not going to go as far as America. It's too far for even us. Yep. Two things. The one drop law, I don't remember the other one, but the one drop law, one drop of Black blood, you're Black. He said he couldn't do that. So they had some extensions that, they had some extensions. He said, I can't do that. That's too hard.
Yeah.
Too hard. So actually, I wrote this a long time ago, and I write a lot of things a long time ago, and I don't think they sound very good, and I forget about them. And I was cleaning out something, and I found this while I was reading Cast,
Okay.
and I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to work with this.
Yes.
So I just read it this week at Montlow College.
Mm-hmm.
So pleased to be in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And I read it in regards to Sidney Poitier. Sidney Poitier is this beautiful, beautiful Black man. And so I wrote it in that. I read it concentrating on that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really about any subjugated person, what happens. It's called Upon Entering the Room. Upon entering the room. Upon entering the room, the air shook, trembled, vibrated, and was stilled at the same moment. Women gasped and opened their eyes, seeing elegance for the first time. Men raised their eyebrows with open eye in revulsion at their own inadequacy, and then they blinked, inquiring within from the outset how to excise the brilliance that suddenly illuminated the room. The women chittered and chattered while delicately licking their lips. The men grew silent and tight-lipped, resolving to remain calm. He said nothing. He did nothing. He just stood beautifully, magnificently Black, and richly delicious. His eyes flashed lightning quick as he observed the visual portrait of the staring men and women. He thought, upon entering the room, have I this passion created? Laughter ensued. The women and the men began inwardly plotting their submission and his demise, respectively, at the same terrifying moment. The room began to spin as both men and women thought together, this being is too Black and too strong. The lush blackness of his skin sparkled as stars against a midnight sky. His smile invites those present to think of rainbows, pots of gold, and of distant lands. He is too powerful. It is not possible to gaze upon such elegance and brilliance at the same time and live. His smile lures them beyond themselves and issues an invitation, a passport, if you will, to travel to forbidden destinations. Oh, they are ashamed to look. Both men and women who pale in comparison, but they stare anyway, audaciously wondering, how does this being survive his own beauty? They cannot survive the sight of such brilliant elegance. Death is imminent. So in a flash, in a look, locked within a sly smile, his fate is decided. We cannot love you. You and this magnificent, no, it is impossible to love. They silently, collectively wonder about the woman who may be his companion to this man's beauty. Can his women transfix us, paralyze us in the same way? Can she do the very same but more? Can she possess a beauty that inflames and incites a passion that cannot be fulfilled? Oh, the men decide quickly, expediently, that this creature, this magnificent being whose very shadow casts light into a room cannot live because they themselves possess nothing like it, and nothing indeed is greater within. So his fate, not decided with anger or even hate, it is decided for the preservation of their own lives. Destroy is the answer. Destroy this magnificent being. Kill his soul, not his body. No trophy room can hold him. He cannot be killed in the way one kills the lion, but kill his soul. That is the death the men plot and plan. The women, their eyes veiled with lust and desire, plead for the survival of this darkness. This precious, beautiful darkness must be preserved. All they want to do is look, because looking at this beauty confirms they are indeed alive. We will look but never touch. We will break the beautiful darkness, much the way men break horses. We will reduce his loveliness to the unenviable position of a pet. Not a pet, below a pet. We will reduce him to a beast of burden. We will destroy this beauty. We will own and possess this beauty. His eyes will never flash again. The skin, the beautiful skin, will ash over with regret. The rainbows of hope and pots of gold to be replaced by dreary storms. Escape if you can, but around every corner is the grim implementation of our plan. Soon beauty fades. The eyes are dull. There is no smile. The body is worn and ragged. The plans of both the men and the women seem to have worked, and the blackness appears to be less than. And they are still the same, but at least we feel more than you upon entering the room where you stand. Let us go to the next room, they say. Upon entering the room, there is a new iteration of what was thought to be destroyed. Standing there, offering rainbows of hope and pots of gold, with flashing brilliant eyes and with skin that lights the midnight sky, and hands extended, inviting them to distant lands on his own terms, smiling, shining brilliantly as before. Now that's my take on Caste.
It's beautiful.
We will survive. We will be there when you get there.
We've always been here.
Right.
And we're the ones who are blind.
That is the point.
Yes, I feel it.
That is the point.
I absolutely feel it.
That is
so incredible, Lyn. And you know, you are truly a gift. And I say to so many people out there, young people, if you're listening to this, share this with your friends. We have a deep, rich need to connect with the wisdom of our elders. I know Lyn told me about a woman that lived next door to her when she was growing up, who she loved dearly, but didn't think about where she had been and how she had lived her life. Lyn, would you just share a little bit about your friend who lived next door?
Yes, I was about 8 or 9 years old. And I loved summertime. Back in those days, and it's coming back to me, I could smell the first day of summer, the last day of school, the first day of school. All those times had specific smells to me. And so on any given summer morning, I would wake up and run to my window, and our houses were not that far apart. And I didn't tell you this yesterday, but when she died, my parents, they moved her house with a truck.
Oh, it was a small house.
It was small.
Yeah.
And my parents bought that piece of property and made it our driveway. So now you can imagine how tiny the property was. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I could hear her singing in the morning. I could hear her preparing her breakfast. I could hear the forks clicking together. She had nothing, no electricity, no running water. Uh, she just did everything old. Of course, it wasn't that foreign to me.
Yes.
Because this was in 1950. So at a time in my own house, we had a wood stove. At a time in my own house, we had a wood stove and the gas stove. And because my parents cooked a lot, sometimes there would be things cooking on both stoves. So the way she lived was not that foreign. It was just the way she lived. Kerosene oil lamps and anyway, and she wasn't very tall, but recently I've tried to place her in time, and what I figured out is because she lived to be 102.
Wow.
She lived to be 102, and she might have been around 96 when I was 88 or 9. 1955. If I just take that back 100 years, then that would take you back to 1855, her birth, which I don't really know.
Yes.
But that meant that she was born in slavery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for people that say we have no connection to that, well, we do.
It's not that far. It's not that far
right.
back.
Because I don't know if I said on this broadcast or not, my father was born in 1894, the man that adopted me.
Yes.
Was born in 1894, and his father was enslaved.
Yes.
My mother was born in 1902. Which puts me in a different, they would have really been my grandparents.
Right.
So I grew up old.
And, you know, it's fascinating to me. I'm just going to say this kind of briefly because I told you about my original, we're going longer than most, Lyn, but this has been so wonderful. When I told you about having my mom as my first interviewee, you know, when you told me, you didn't share with me yesterday the fact that you were passed to one woman who said, no, I can't take you, and gave them to her parents.
Oh.
So
okay.
That's my mom.
Okay.
My mom, well, in that sense, my mom's sister gave birth to her. She left. My mom's grandparents took her and then legally adopted her, just like you were legally adopted while she was away. So I just am fascinated by some of the similar things, and the fact that you're looking for your father. You're going to see if you can find who your father was, or at least DNA wise, understand more about your past.
Right.
So,
and this is why we must love and we must know, because we're essentially the same people. Yeah. All of us have this story. All of us have stories.
Yes. And so often the stories are kept secret too. And that was one thing my mom and I talked about at the end of our thing, is the secrets destroy human lives. So much of the secrets held keep us from really understanding. So, and I know yesterday you said, telling the truth. Horrible. The thing that you've learned is about, you know, now in this period of your life, it's like, I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to say it like it is. Please, and I want
people to tell me the truth.
Yes.
A lot of things could have been preserved if you just tell the truth. A lot of things we can get through if you tell the truth. You know, and I will say this. I know you want to go, but back to
I don't want to go. We could go for hours.
Just tell the truth. Just say, in this church, there will never be. Tell the truth.
Right.
We don't believe in it. You know, scripturally, just tell the truth. Right. And then people who have been called, women, gay people, whoever who have been called by God, will know to move on and find out another truth.
Yes. Find their tribe, find their people, who want to hear, who will be present for what is being shared and willing
Because
to take.
what happens if in sacred situations, if you do not tell the truth, then those sacred places become tainted.
Yeah.
People give up.
Yeah.
People want to push away.
Yeah.
People want to not believe. Well, what I came to understand, it's not the place, it's the God. And God is everywhere for me.
Yes.
It's God for me. It's not the place.
Right.
If God is not here with me, then I'm not doing any good anyway. You see?
Yes.
And so that is why you have to just know who you are. Know who you are, what your truth is, what your measuring rod is, what your I wish I could talk to the pastor that's listening right now, because he would tell me the exact thing to say.
He can write it in the comments below.
But anyway, there's a scriptural reference to the plumb line.
Yes.
Know what your plumb line is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
he told me.
And listen, yeah, he's right. Listen for the word of God. Listen to the voice of God telling you what to do.
Right.
And follow that.
Right. And that does not have to be in an institution.
Yes.
Everybody can't do the institution.
And the institution is, all institutions are falling away, but that's a whole other topic. So I want to just say, the thing that I want to leave with today is, as a wise elder, this is a question, how can the younger generations best serve, like myself, to serve to lift up and honor and respect the voices of elders in our nation? What do you sense we need to do to change the dynamic so that children are receiving the necessary guidance from elders? Is that something you can speak to?
I know I cannot speak to that. This is what I know.
Mm-hmm.
If your community, see, I happen to be connected to another community
Mm-hmm.
that reveres elders.
Mm-hmm.
If your community reveres elders,
Mm-hmm.
then you will create children who will revere elders.
Okay.
If your community says, because this is something I faced in church too,
Mm-hmm.
you're too old, we're not going to invest anything in you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do this with someone who's 70. Well, you're telling me I'm obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
When God has not told me I'm obsolete.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that because of a passage in scripture where a man who asked God or prayed to God to allow him to live until he could see the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Anna, the prophet, was in the same place, and she had been a widow for over 80 some years. I mean, these are elders.
Yes.
And God revealed to them the hope of the Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
And the man said, now I can die well. And Anna said, it is good with my soul. I have seen
Mm-hmm.
the hope and the promise.
Mm-hmm.
Elders,
Yes.
you see.
Yeah.
That's in Luke, around the 5th or 6th chapter, somewhere in there. It's in the birth narrative of Jesus. But elders transcend time. Well, there's another saying: when an elder dies, a whole library is destroyed. One of the quirks about who I am, I remember saving my money so diligently around 13 or 14 years old because I wanted a tape recorder. I got that, but then I didn't know what to do with the tape recorder. Why didn't I record my parents?
Mm.
It didn't occur to me.
Yeah. Well,
talk to your elders.
Yeah.
Make some notes about what they did and what they saw. And
ask them about their childhood.
right.
Ask, yes. I mean, because the thing is like you said, that the library is gone. It's like there's so much wisdom in life experience of moments of how you maneuvered through your life, the good decisions, the maybe not so good decisions, and what the ramifications were for that, and just yes, So it's time for us to bring the circle back. Create communities that have the children and the elders together.
Right.
And do more of these things. I don't have to be the only one out here, and I know I'm not, but it's like continue to bring these ideas forward, give opportunities, give voice to someone like Lyn in your life, who is a goddess. Like the moment I saw her, I was like, she's the schnizzle. That's my word. She's the schnizzle. And, I see her, but, there'll be another time when we're supposed to be together. But I knew there was something very special about you. And just more people taking the time to lift people up. Because as Lyn said, it was me asking and her going, what? And then ever since I asked and posted, just like people are coming out of the woodwork to have a moment or moments with Lyn, and that's what we need to do. We need to create the energy like that,
right,
to move it forward and to keep you guys in service, because ultimately that's right. What life is. Life is about service,
right?
Mm-hmm. And service keeps you alive.
That I found out I could sit right in my home and do many things and go many places.
Yes. Yes. And your words rippling out in the universe and touching people's lives. That's what it's all about. So I honor you, my friend. I thank you for your time and your story and your life, and know that it's going to continue to unfold in a beautiful way, because you are a beautiful, beautiful human being.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Be well.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's listened. If for some reason you didn't get to watch the whole thing, I will have this available on a YouTube channel and a link for people to be able to listen to in the future as well. Have a beautiful day. Love to your sweet husband, and thank him for connecting us in the way that he did. It's God saying, Doc, Something about Doc. Thank you again. Blessings to you, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yes. Yes, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.